Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rokture Ramblings, where I discuss topics around digital marketing, marketing automation, and marketing operations for the financial services industry. My name is Fernando Pena, and I'm the founder of Rokture, where I can help you master the digital channel. And today's topic, I'm actually going to go a little bit against my introduction here and talk about something that spans outside of digital. And this is a topic that I call a ostrich topic. And the reason I say that is because a lot of leaders are not wanting to see reality. And as a result of that, they stick their head in the sand, almost like an ostrich would, at least on cartoons, because I've never seen one do that in real life. But in any case, today's topic is marketing the golden ticket? And so I'm going to go over marketing hype, marketing reality, where it goes wrong, how to reduce the impact of obstacles, and also that it's okay to ask for help. So let's talk about marketing hype. And this is something that you see every day now. This is permeating the industry and really something where the promise from different vendors and experts and just marketing leaders and people who are involved in marketing have a lot of hype attached to their message. And a lot of that is there's merit to it. It is true in many cases, but I think it's also selling a lot of the processes and a lot of these successes short in terms of what it takes to get there. So let's review the marketing hype. There's new technologies and they've generated a tremendous amount of fanfare and they have increased productivity. That is a definite plus and something that as a smaller financial institution, you're reaping the rewards of that because now this technology is accessible to virtually anyone. Marketing automation has helped to improve scalability and also help to increase productivity. And also, personalization and optimization are now given. So there's really no excuse to not be able to do it, except for the fact that, of course, there's some challenges in adopting some of these standards. But again, the technology has helped with scaling, automating, and just helping different efficiencies. Cross-channel promotions and tracking is now possible. So in the past, there was the digital channel, and that was a very strictly defined vertical. There was an offline channel, and then of course there's a number of other channels that you perform business in. But it was very difficult to track across them, and now it is easier. It's still challenging, and a lot of that is because there are many sort of firewalls between these different platforms and systems. But in many cases now, especially with cloud-based technology, there's a blurring of those lines, and you are able to track across them. Now let's look at the reality of what marketing really is here, and that's that the basic marketing concept still applies. So regardless of everything that has been introduced and the fact that we've got new technology to make life easier for marketers, there's still a need to be able to connect with your audience. And so that reality is sometimes lost. It's not a formula where you say A plus B is equal to C. There's still something that has to take place that helps to convince your audience and establish that trust that is not something you can use technology for. The other thing is that prospects are now more informed and aware. So they have been just continually pummeled with messaging and they've seen every trick in the book tried to apply to them. And as a result of that, they now have their guard up a little bit more. So it does require more effort on your part in order to be able to get that message across to them. Now, all of these technologies are great, but one thing that is a constant is that they're difficult to master. Even the easiest one still has a lot of functionality and a lot more sort of capability than most novice users are willing to learn about. And as a result of that, a lot of the sort of advantages of the tech are not realized until you have a power user or an expert at the helm that is able to really drive the potential of that platform and help you realize its full benefits. There's also too many options to determine a clear winner. So that is absolutely a struggle. So you've probably all seen that big technology landscape diagram that shows all the different technologies that are available for marketers. And oftentimes those technologies span across different capabilities and functions. So you're just given a multitude of choices that every single vendor says is the best solution. And so that can be very overwhelming and something that unfortunately causes a little bit of headache because you've got different platforms that sometimes perform the same function. And you've got to try to figure out which platform is the best for your intended use case. Last of all, and as the hands allude to on this picture here, marketing is still very hard work. And the reason being is that, again, all of these things that I just described, there's so much more that is part of the reality. So, regardless of how other marketers or experts might say that it's very easy to perform marketing today, that's not really the reality, and it really does take a lot of research and a lot of testing, learning, training in order to get to a point where you can see some success in the marketing space. Now, where it goes wrong, and this is where my conversations and also the work that I do with marketing, with organizational leaders, turns into something a little bit more than my initial outreach to them. So, oftentimes, I'm brought in order to be able to help with digital marketing. And that is true. That's something that I can absolutely help with. But as I peek under the covers in most of these organizations, what I find is that there's a lot more at stake and a lot more that needs improvement than just marketing. And that's why I say that marketing is not the golden ticket, because oftentimes marketing problems are a symptom of larger organizational issues. And so I'm sort of reclassifying what I'm doing these days because it's really to help with organizational growth. It's really to help with trying to um, uncover inefficiencies and trying to create alignment between all the different teams in order to be able to allow marketing to succeed. So what I'm finding is that there's a lot of pre-work that takes place before you get to the point where you are starting to market successfully. So where it goes wrong here is that oftentimes I see that organizations have a lack of strategy and goals that are defined and accessible to the entire organization. Sounds simple, but unfortunately, what I'm finding is that a lot of organizations may have goals and strategies in place, but they're not well. They're not something that is observed or actually executed by the different lines of business. They sometimes, those different lines of business have their own missions and their own objectives, and they don't always align with what the organization as a whole is looking to achieve. Speaking of misalignment, so misalignment of marketing and sales. This one is a big one because there's sometimes contention between these two groups, or not sometimes, many times, and they don't really understand what each of them does. And as a result of that, you get marketing trying to maybe do some of sales work and the other way around. And neither one is able to master the other's skills. So there has to be alignment and a clear delineation as to who does what and where that process is handed off from one to the other. There's operational inefficiencies. So this is something where you can have the best marketing and the best sales process, but once those prospects are converting into, or those leads are converting into customers, if there's operational inefficiencies and that journey has a number of obstacles, then there's going to be failure there. And unfortunately, something like marketing will get blamed because you don't see the conversions on the back end. So marketing will say, look, I brought you 50 leads that were highly qualified and they started the application process. And then on the back end, you've got just a handful that made it through. So that's uncovering something beyond marketing that's problematic. Inconsistent customer experience. So you've got this marketing message to say, we're the best, we're the most innovative, we are the most loved. And then your customers go through the process, or your leads do, and they find that this is not at all what I was promised. So that inconsistent customer experience is a big problem and something that will keep marketing from being able to succeed. And then I touched upon this as we started this slide, the inability to define marketing's role. So that has to be very clearly defined as to what is marketing in charge of. Are they just a social media outlet? Are they just a part of the organization that does branding or events? There really has to be a definition that this is marketing's responsibility, and it spans beyond just digital because it really spans across all different touch points if that's what you choose for marketing to do. But it has to be very clearly defined. Otherwise, somewhere along the line, the ball is going to get dropped and you're not going to see the successes that you should be. Next, let's discuss how to reduce the impact of those obstacles. So I talked a little bit about these in previous slides, but just to reiterate where you can try to see improvements. So first and most important is to publish and socialize the organizational goals and KPIs. This has to be very clear because otherwise there's going to be a sort of misunderstanding that this is what's most important to a line of business or the organization as a whole. And so by making this very clear in the beginning, there's no question that this is what we're trying to achieve. And regardless of your individual function, this is where we have to reach. Clearly define marketing's role within the organization. So I mentioned this before. This is something where we have to know this is marketing's responsibility. This is where sales comes in. This is where the operational aspect comes in, et cetera. Also, stop leaning upon technology to fix issues. Use it as a tool to improve working processes and functions. So, when something's broken, don't immediately go off and buy a new piece of technology. Fix that broken part of the process, then introduce new tools as they're needed when you figure out exactly where you can uncover some additional inefficiencies, and then make certain that the sales and marketing KPIs align with each other. I've seen this in organizations where, for example, marketing is trying to push everybody to the web, but now sales isn't compensated for any web leads. And so that causes a huge disconnect and problems just all throughout. So make sure that you don't have two KPIs that just do not align with each other. And the last slide is really asking for help. So oftentimes leaders are overwhelmed. There's a lot that I just reviewed in these few slides that is just too much to even consider in many cases. There are so many more things that you can be doing, and unfortunately, this part of it is a little tedious at times. So asking for help is not something that you should be embarrassed about or something that is discouraged. Today's marketing environment really requires a dedicated team or individual to realize success. There's just so many nuances now that marketing is not as straightforward as it used to be. And now, when you introduce technology into it, it just becomes that much more complicated. I've seen a lot of organizations conducting their marketing functions sort of as a side hustle. And what I mean by that is that they have someone who does a few functions and then they do some marketing too. And I think this is just not the right way to go about it, unfortunately. It may look like it's more cost effective and that sales can do the job without any help. But in reality, marketing should be a dedicated function, a dedicated individual or team. And with that, you'll be able to finally see some successes. Also, understand that the entire organizational landscape and developing proven strategy is critical. So, what I mean by that is going back to, again, those realities and obstacles. If you have organizational issues, then marketing is not going to solve those organizational issues. If you have inefficiencies in a process, again, marketing won't solve that. You'll be pouring leads and money into a funnel that unfortunately is not going to net anything on the other side. So those have to be addressed, and a strategy has to be built to make sure that that experience throughout that funnel and that life cycle is ideal and is able to net some value at the end. And then also, advocacy of that strategy is key to sustained success. So it's one thing for a leader to say, this is what we're going to do. But unless you execute on that strategy and you advocate it on a continual basis, then it's one of those things where it just gets forgotten, where everybody goes rah, rah for a short period of time, and then they just go back to what they know. So continual advocacy is something that is necessary. And that's where I think an outsider can really help, where an individual can come in and try to advocate on that strategy and leverage their expertise to demonstrate that this is proven elsewhere. Therefore, it's going to work within your environment as long as we tweak it and make sure to customize it to your individual customer base and the way that your organization runs. So this is something where, again, when I look at the type of work that I do, although it's focused on digital marketing, in reality, I end up going from a sort of specific task that I'm trying to achieve to more of a generalist, because a lot of these things do have to be addressed in order for marketing to work. And especially so on the digital marketing side, because oftentimes that leads to an offline experience. So we have to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned to net out that perfect result. So that's all for today. Here is my bio and contact information. So if you're finding that these challenges are just insurmountable on your part, or you just like to discuss your specific scenario, then please reach out to me. We'll set up some time to go through where we might be able to find some potential fixes or solutions for the challenges that you face. Thank you so much for your time today. I will talk to you the next time. Bye bye.